It's day 2 of the 9-stage Tour de Suisse, and Verbier, the ski resort today, hosts the first mountaintop finish of the race. And it's first day in the yellow jersey for the Slovakian rider Peter Sagan. But he's a sprinter, not a climber. Epic Cycle Series presented by Michelob Ultra continues in the Alps today, but this time it's the Swiss Alps, the French Alps that hosted the Criterium du Dauphiné. The first stage takes the riders from Italy, actually, from Verbania to the ski resort of Verbier, a ride of 135 miles. Hello, everybody. I'm Paul Sherwin. Alongside me is Bob Roll. It's a tough day to start this off, Bob, isn't it, with a mountaintop finish straight on the first day in the open road.
Also a big Category 1 climb halfway through the stage over the Seine-Plomb Pass that will take the peloton from Italy, the start town, back into Switzerland, and the finish down at the ski station of Verbier.
Yes, it was dramatic downhill time trial that Peter Sagan took a lot of risks to get himself the victory, just ahead of Fabian Cancellara.
Cancellara back on form, second on the stage, but all hats off to Peter Sagan. Dominant performance in the opening stage 1 time trial of the Tour de Suisse.
And the man who led for a very long time in third place there, Moreno Moser. But it's all about the final climb of the day, but it's a long ride to get there, Bob.
It is a very long stage today, 218 kilometers, 135 miles, and the huge Seine-Plomb Pass. It's a very long, gradual climb. Anybody dropped on this climb should be able to catch up before the finishing climb to Verbier. Feeding zone about halfway through the race. Verbier, this climb made famous back in the 2009 Tour de France, and we saw the victory there of a certain Alberto Contador.
Oh, yes, certainly is. It's a very steep climb. It's rated outside categorization, making it one of the toughest climbs that cycling can throw at anybody. And I'm sure at the end of the day, we will start to see some very big time gaps. We're 28 kilometers to go now to Verbier. Those two riders there are riders who escaped very early on in the day. It's Ryan Anderson of Spidertech and Alessandro Bazzana of Team Taiwan. One team from Canada, one team from the United States. They built themselves a maximum advantage at one stage of 7 minutes and 51 seconds, but then the peloton started to chase down. We're not too far away, Bob, here from a time bonus sprint point. That could be extremely important. 3 seconds time bonus for the first rider to cross the line, 2 seconds and 1 second. And I have an inkling that a certain Fabian Cancellara will have a little dig to see if he can try and get the yellow jersey.
It'll be interesting to see if Peter Sagan comes out and races for that time bonus. He has a 4-second advantage over the man from Switzerland, Fabian Cancellara, to start the stage.
Well, as Ryan Anderson starts the sprint there, Bob, just look a little bit further back. The lime green jerseys of Liquigas Cannondale, and they are lining up the sprint for Peter Sagan. He wants as many bonus points as he can. Do you think that Peter Sagan can survive on this final climb of the day?
Oh, I would be very surprised if he could survive all the way up to Verbier. He's going for the sprint, though. He's going to get the maximum time advantage there. 3 seconds will be added to his advantage from the time trial, which was 7 seconds. Easy win for Peter Sagan. I think he caught the field by surprise. Nobody else tried for it.
Well, he didn't catch us by surprise, did he, Bob, in the Amgen Tour of California, where he won stages 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the final stage around Los Angeles, LA Live.
That's Peter Sagan now soft pedaling after that ferocious sprint, trying to keep his jersey. His intentions are clear. He wants that yellow jersey as race leader at the end of today's stage. That would be very impressive at the top of an HC Beyond category climb.
Well, he had a lead of 4 seconds ahead of Fabian Cancellara this morning. He's just grabbed himself another 3-second time bonus, so he leads this race now by 7 seconds in the overall standings. He is going to be something to watch at the Tour de France when he comes up against the likes of Mark Cavendish. That should be interesting in July.
Tour de France has never seen a Slovakian stage winner at their race, so Peter Sagan hoping to be the first one. His countryman Peter Velec has done the Tour de France twice in the past, but he's the only Slovakian ever to compete in the Tour, and no stage wins yet for the country of Slovakia. No stage wins either for Peter Sagan. It'll be his first participation, assuming everything goes smoothly between now and then.
Well, there's another sprint point in 7 miles time, and then after that it's all uphill to the ski resort of Verbier. The main field, having chased down those two riders, it's all back together again, and a little bit of wetness starting to appear, a little bit of humidity starting to come down here, which could make the approach to the ski resort of Verbier rather tricky.
And if we do get some rain showers between now and then, it will make things even more trickier across Europe. Rain showers, intermittent, Roland Garros delayed in the middle of the match of the men's final between Nadal and Djokovic. Nadal eventually, once he got back going, was able to win the French Open.
Well, the first three riders, they're all from the same team, Liquigas Cannondale, Sagan, Os and Viviani. Clean sweep for Liquigas Cannondale, so that is going to strengthen the position of Peter Sagan in the overall standings. But at the end of the day, will he be able to keep that yellow jersey, or will Frank Schleck be able to do something rather special? One wonders. The defending champion Levi Leipheimer shine. With the ski resort of Verbier looming on the horizon, there's one more sprint point when we come into the small town of Saint-Branché. And as we can see, everybody's getting themselves organised now, Bob. 17 kilometres to the finish. Well, it's just clicked to 16, so that's 10 miles exactly to the finish line in Verbier. And everybody is getting themselves nice and organised. The fact that Fabian Cancellara is riding on the front here at the moment, he's wearing the leader of the points classification for his second place finish yesterday. The fact that he's riding on the front end of the main field, Bob, they're trying to set this up for Frank Schleck.
He's done this once before in his career in the 2009 Tour de France stage that finished at Verbier. And in that occasion, it was for Andy Schleck, however. Now for Frank Schleck, his brother.
Cheeky little move again. Look at this. Lime green jerseys of Liquigas Cannondale. In second position, there is Peter Sagan. He wants as many points as he can here. Now, Bob, it begs to ask the question, is he going for the time bonuses here because he believes he can get himself over the top of the mountain, or is he just trying to get more points for the points classification?
Well, it's got to be all about the yellow jersey for Peter Sagan. 5 stage wins in the Amgen Tour of California that just finished a couple of weeks ago, and already a stage winner in the Tour de Suisse. Easy. I don't think anybody contested that. His only competitor was his own teammate, Daniel Oss, who had just done the lead out. The other riders that'll look forward to the end of the Tour of Switzerland, not going for those sprints whatsoever. They want to conserve their strength for the last climb today and the rest of the races here to come in the Tour of Swiss.
Second sprint point at Saint-Branché. The thing about Sir Peter Sagan, Bob, 22 years of age, he doesn't really know what his capacities are yet. Neither do we either, Bob, because, you know, this man has bulked up, I think, a little bit during the winter months to become much more of a sprinter, an explosive rider. When you put that extra bulk on to be a sprinter, you lose the ability to get over the climbs.
Well, a very versatile rider, winner of a time trial, winner of 5 stages of the Amgen Tour of California. All of those were sprints, but he was right there at the stage to Big Bear that features some very big climbs. An incredibly talented bike racer, Peter Sagan, one of the big stars on the horizon in cycling, and one of the rare men to come out of the country of Slovakia.
Yep, he is a great talent, and I have to say he was so dominant in the Amgen Tour of California. What was amazing, Bob, was how much his actual English changed towards the end of the week. He's our Michelob Ultra Athlete profile today, 6 foot for 160 pounds.
All-round bike racer, 9 wins in 2012 already, looking for more. 5 wins in the Amgen Tour of California. There were only 8 stages. And he also has been very successful here in the Tour of Switzerland before with 3 total stage wins.
Well, it's looking a bit tricky now because the roads are now dammed. The heavens have opened up. They're crying on the roads of the Tour of Switzerland here this afternoon. And everybody's trying to get themselves organised. The teams are looking for their teammates. They're moving men up to the front because everybody would probably remember, or they must have at least looked at the videos, Bob, of the 2009 Tour de France when it finished here in Verbier. There were some big time gaps.
A little bit different situation in the Tour de France that we're deep into the Tour where fatigue is a big part of who's racing well. Different situation here in the Tour of Switzerland. First day out on the open roads. Interesting, though, often you almost never see one of the big stage races finish the first day on the open road with a huge mountaintop finish, but that's what the riders will face on today's stage in the Tour de Suisse.
Yes, this is a very mountainous Tour of Switzerland. 3 mountaintop finishes today is one of that's the veteran Australian on the front now, Stuart O'Grady. They're obviously trying to set it up for their Swiss rider, Michael Albacini. He's already won the Tour of Catalonia this year. Confirmation of the sprint point again there. Sagan getting himself a 6 points and 3 seconds time bonus. Wouter Poels in second place. Chris Boekmans of Belgium in third place, picking up a single point and a single second. These are nervous moments before they start this climb. Everybody wants to make sure they start near the front, especially the climbers. They want to have that advantage. I noticed Andreas Kloden, the German rider, very close to the front. Number 91, the most popular man in the Tour of Switzerland, I have to say, here in Switzerland, Fabian Cancellara.
Fabian Cancellara has been a massive star of the sport of cycling since he made a dramatic entrance to the world stage by winning the prologue of the Tour de France when it started the last time in Liège, Belgium. We will start there again on the 30th of June, just in about 2 weeks' time. Fabian Cancellara had a dramatic crash out of the Tour of Flanders, vaporized his collarbone on the cobbles in that crash in the Tour of Flanders. But now he's back. He's had a couple of races to get back in form. Most recently, Grand Prix Gippingen, a smaller stage race, but a very tough race indeed. He finished that, and he did a solid opening time trial yesterday, finishing second. But you know what? 4 seconds to an absolutely flying Peter Sagan. I think that's a pretty good result for Fabian Cancellara in his comeback from a broken collarbone.
I tend to agree with you there, but you can see their black and white jerseys there of Radio Shack Nissan. They are looking after two riders today. They're looking after, Bob. They're obviously looking after Andreas Kloden, but also Frank Schleck. Frank, we're going to get a chance. We saw last week in the Criterium du Dauphiné, we saw Andy Schleck was not at the top of his game. Today, maybe Frank Schleck will come out and prove to Team Radio Shack Nissan that he is ready for the Tour de France, and it's an ideal finish for a man like him. When we come back from a little break, we will be on the climb all the way up to Verbier, but the clouds are weeping for everybody. And will this man in the yellow jersey, Peter Sagan, survive? Valère, the main field now are getting very, very nervous indeed. I can see the blue and white jerseys there of Team Garmin Barracuda. They will today be looking after Tom Danielson. This is AT2R. They're looking after the entrance of Martin Elminger, who is a Swiss rider on the French team.
Solid opening time trial by Martin Elminger just into the frame there. And now back onto the wheels of his teammates. AG2R had a solid Dauphiné that just finished. And this man, Peter Sagan, not going to defend that jersey. Boom, boom, out go the lights. But it's been a great ride so far for Peter Sagan. Won't go for the yellow, but perhaps the points jersey is in his near future.
Well, don't worry about this man, Bob, because, you know, he's been a professional since 2010, and he's already won himself 32 victories. That's what he's here in this Tour of Switzerland about. He wants to win as many stages as possible. And any thought of trying to hold on to the yellow jersey, I think he's just checked out there, and he will survive to the top of this climb if he can. The question is, though, who is going to be the new leader of this bike race overall, because it could go any which way you want.
Oh, absolutely. Everything up for grabs now. The race leader out the back. He will not contest the stage, not keep the yellow jersey either. A lot of riders in the time trial that opened up the Tour of Switzerland that are GC contenders were not in the top 5 or the top 10 even. Robert Hasing, maybe the best man placed in the opening time trial to get the next yellow jersey, but it's up for grabs now, and nearly anybody in the first 20 riders, depending on how things turn out at the end of the stage, have a chance at the lead, the overall lead in the Tour of Swiss. Also, let's not forget, there's a time bonus at the finish line that will make a big difference, and that is a full 10 seconds to whoever wins the stage.
The first 3 riders taking time bonuses, 10 seconds, 6 seconds and 4 seconds for the first 3 riders to cross the line. Peter Sagan has said goodbye to the yellow jersey here this afternoon, but what are the performances going to be like of Levi Leipheimer? He's the defending champion here of the Tour de Suisse. He won it last year with a very good time trial right down towards the end. Michael Albacini is the man who leads Orica Green Edge. Damiano Cunego. But I think I tend to agree with you, Bob. Robert Hessing, after his incredibly dominant performance at the Amgen Tour of California, he's going to enjoy a climb like this.
Robert Hessing did a great Amgen Tour of California. Stayed a little bit under the radar. Did a solid time trial, but then at the last moment, when no one could do anything about it, he made his maximum effort, and that was the climb up to Mount Baldy, and he distanced himself between everybody that was in front of him, got the leader's jersey, and then he and his teammates were able to defend it on the last stage of the race the next day.
Yeah, but it's rather complicated. I'd say it's going to be quite complicated, Bob, for Radio Shack Nissan Trek, because Fabian Cancellara has done a lot of work to set his guys up. They can go any which way they want. Frank Schleck, Andreas Kloden, both experienced bike riders. Jakob Fuglsang, who from Denmark on the Radio Shack team, he's looking for a Tour de France place, and a good ride today could earn him that slot.
And what about Linus Gerdemann, former stage winner of the Tour de France and yellow jersey wearer? Linus Gerdemann, up and down career since then. He's looking for a shot at the Tour de France again, but all of the riders on the Radio Shack Nissan Trek squad need to prove themselves before we get into the Tour de France, and it's this race that they can do that.
Well, it's getting steep already. This is Heinrich Hausel on the front in the blue and white jersey of Garmin Barracuda. He's not thinking about winning the stage himself. He's thinking about setting this up for his leader, Tommy Danielson, who just came 3rd in the Amgen Tour of California. Finished inside of the top 10 in the Tour de France last year. Here is the corner. Once they come around that corner with 9 kilometers to go, just about 6 miles of racing, that's when it starts to go, ouch.
Ouch, the green line, that's where the leaders of the peloton are. The steep part of the climb is about to begin. They're sweeping off of the valley road here, hard left-hand corner. Almost a 180-degree turn. Some riders are already having trouble at the bottom of this. You want to be near the front of the peloton to have a chance to win this stage.
Well, you do if you're a climber. I was never anywhere near the front of the peloton when it came to a final climb like this. I was usually a long way off the back already. 9 kilometers into the very famous ski resort of Verbier. And a lot of riders, I'm sure, will be thinking about that monstrous attack by Alberto Contador here in 2009.
Alberto Contador leaving nothing to chance on the slopes of this climb in the 2009 Tour de France. It was a very tight battle before this climb. This climb absolutely blew the peloton to smithereens, and Alberto Contador came out the clear favorite at the top of this mountain. Very selective beyond category climb to finish off today's stage of the Tour de Suisse.
Yeah, well, and let's not forget, it's been a very long stage today. It's a total distance of 136 miles of racing. That's a long way to ride, and then having a climb up to the front. This looks to me very much like Laurens ten Dam going clear. He's a very good bike rider from Rabobank. This must be a setup for Hessink.
Hessink will be in the peloton following the wheels. Laurens ten Dam, very courageous ride to get through the Tour de France last summer after crashing dramatically and finishing the stage with a broken nose. He was able to finish that Tour de France. Hats off to Laurens ten Dam in last year's Tour de France, but the dramatic images that we all saw, him crashing, then coming back to the peloton with his face completely bandaged, and that made him a big star, not only in Holland, his native country, but also throughout the rest of the bike racing world.
Well, you know, the Tour de France is a very special race. No bike rider wants to leave it by the back door, and this man, it was a dramatic crash, but he carried on and he finished. Spitzer, by the way, in Swiss German, means the leader, and the leader right now is Laurens ten Dam. There's no response at all in the main field, Bob. They're still waiting for the grippier part of the climb when the gradients start to kick in.
Fairly big group still. Now the proceedings being led by the Radio Shack squad. Interesting to see here, Andreas Kloden on the front of the peloton. It's a pretty big group now, but I dare say it'll be much smaller in the next few hundred meters when Andreas Kloden goes to the front on a big climb like this.
Well, if Andreas Kloden is doing the work here, Bob, it must mean that they're thinking about Frank Schleck. He's got a good acceleration at the top of a climb like this, or, of course, Jakob Fuglsang, who hit a very good ride in the individual time trial.
Fuglsang solid in the time trial, coming off of a win in the Tour of Luxembourg just recently. So Fuglsang on good form. Big question mark, though. Frank Schleck dropped out of the Giro d'Italia to the disappointment of his team manager, Johan Renew. He made no bones about that in the press after Frank Schleck went home early in the Giro d'Italia. Theoretically, he's been at home, training hard, and is now ready for the Tour of Switzerland.
Well, Andreas Kloden is really putting the pedal to the metal here this afternoon, and look at the damage that's been done in the main field. Talk about a long line. That is an incredible line. 8 kilometers to go, 5 miles till we get to Verbier. A few people will be looking for the ski lift, I think, shortly.
And the wild card in the deck is this weather. The rain starting to fall. It's not as dangerous on a climb, but it does affect you physiologically. Some riders much better, much more proficient in the rain when it's a lot more moist and humid than when it's dry.
The third place rider there in wearing number 33, that is Thomas Lofquist. He's sitting at the front end here trying to make sure that he can ride up in the overall standings. Levi Leipheimer is in this group as well. The man who leads the Green Edge team is in the group, Michael Albertini.
And Damiano Cunego, the Lamprey rider in the pink and blue, just going through. Interestingly, on his wheel was the man from the Astana squad. That's Roman Kreuziger, former winner of the Tour of Switzerland.
There's 131. That's the man we've been talking about. Robert Hessink sitting in the wheels at the moment, waiting for the climb to get a little bit steeper before he starts to make his move. He was very, very dominant. Incredible ride on the slopes of Mount Baldy to win the Amgen Tour of California.
And on the shoulder of Hessink, his teammate Steven Kruijswijk, winner of a stage in the Tour of Switzerland last year, and he finished third overall. So a lot on the line for Rabobank.
Well, I'm just wondering what's going on there, Bob. And if this rider had managed to slip off the front end of the main field at one stage, that was a rather strange little maneuver there. They're all back together now. They've pulled back Laurens ten Dam. Ten Dam continues to do the pacemaking. Damiano Cunego, the rider you were talking about, Bob, is the rider in the pink and blue jersey of Lamprey on the fluorescent bike.
95. That's Kloden. He's done his work. He's done. It was his teammate, Jakob Fuglsang, that was just off the front, peeled off, came back into the group. Not time yet. He's conserving himself, waiting for the right moment, closing down the gap to Laurens ten Dam, and then he pulled off. Now he's back in the field and presumably shepherding Frank Schleck towards the finish line.
Well, Bout Mollema, number 134, he's sitting at the back end of the group for Team Rabobank. But these guys are all now getting tailed off the peloton, and it was all started by Andreas Kloden. I wonder what the plan is going to be on board the Radio Shack Nissan team.
7 kilometers before the finish, still a big group at the front. These riders are struggling to make the tempo at the back. They still have 2 more mountaintop finishes in the rest of the Tour of Switzerland before we're done. There's Timmy Dugan just going through your screen. He just recently won the national road title after a sterling bit of work in the Tour of California for his team leader, Peter Sagan. He won the national title, and that was a great result for Tim Dugan.
Yeah, the American rider on the Italian squad, Tim Duggan, rides for Liquigas Cannondale. There are not many riders left here at all, Bob, as they start to really put the pressure on Rabobank. Their orange jersey still, Laurens ten Dam doing that pacemaking, waiting for somebody else to take over at the front end of the main field. Frank Schleck is sitting comfortably in about fifth or sixth position there, looking over the shoulders. Fuglsang is in that group also.
A little bit of a word there between Fuglsang and Frank Schleck, chit-chatting a bit, planning out their strategy. It was a huge group just 2 kilometers ago. Now we're down to a much smaller field. Less than half as many riders left in the front, but still quite a few men in with the chance.
Well, we're a long way from the finish. We're a long way from Verbier. We'll take a short break and continue on this climb. Tomorrow, the Epic Cycle Series presented by Michelob Ultra continues with Stage 3 of the Tour de Suisse. Tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, only on the NBC Sports Network. Well, Bob, it's getting a little bit grippy on the roads of the ascent to Verbier here this afternoon. There's Peter Velits in the pale blue jersey, the taller rider. On the inside, alongside him, Levi Leipheimer wears number 1 as the defending champion.
It'll be very interesting to see how Levi does in this week's racing.
Oh, this is Frank Schleck. Frank Schleck has made the move. That is why Andreas Kloden and all the other riders were riding at the front end of the main field to try and toughen this up. There's been no response.
4 miles to the finish line. Frank Schleck showing some signs of life in his preparation for the Tour de France. He was 3rd last summer. Second was his brother Andy. Of course, the winner, Cadel Evans. Frank Schleck now for the first time this season showing some incentive.
Well, I tell you what are they doing, Bob? They should have responded to a move like that straight away. Frank Schleck is not exactly a nobody in the sport of professional cycling. Yes, he might have abandoned the Giro d'Italia, but he went a long way through. Here he's testing his legs.
Testing his legs out on the climb to Verbier. He saw Alberto Contador do a very similar acceleration in the 2009 Tour de France, but Frank Schleck now is struck out on his own. Let's see if there's any response from the peloton. This is a race-winning move right here.
Well, no reaction so far at all. The question is, who is going to take up the pacemaking? That will really rattle them and put the cat amongst the pigeons on this occasion. Number 98, Frank Schleck, and it's now going to be the Lampre riders in their pink and blue jerseys. They will try and pull him back because they'll try and set this race up for Damiano Cunego.
Damiano Cunego just finished the Giro d'Italia a couple of weeks ago, and in last year in the Tour of Switzerland, he led until the last time trial. He was overhauled by Levi Leipheimer on that occasion, but there's Damiano Cunego, 7 riders back, following the acceleration of his teammate. That's Dario Cataldo, the Lampre rider, chasing this man, our lone leader, Frank Schleck.
Well, Frank Schleck has got nothing to write home about so far this season. He had a 12th place in the Amstel Gold Race. He was supposed to be the team leader when they went to the Giro d'Italia, but he didn't. He had a nasty little crash there and decided to pull out. But there's a lot of damage now being done. 5 kilometers to go to the finish. That's 3 miles of racing. Lots of damage being done at the back. But who is going to chase down Frank Schleck?
Well, maybe nobody is capable of doing it. They all know that he's went up the road. This is his favorite terrain, the high mountains featured in the big stage races like the Tour de France and here the Tour of Switzerland. Frank Schleck himself also a former winner of the Tour of Switzerland because of this.
Peter Velits was going backwards there, Bob, number 8. Now, that's a bit of a shock to see because he's a man who's finished well up in races like the Vuelta a España. Now, I'm a bit surprised to see that. That's an indication of how hard this race is.
Peter Velits has been 2nd in the Vuelta a España, and he is a great climber. Frank Schleck putting him immediately into trouble. This man is going off the back. The Luxembourger, Frank Schleck, going off the front.
Well, Frank Schleck is no stranger to the Tour of Switzerland. He's a winner a couple of years ago, back in 2010. He finished 7th overall last year. He's gone a very long way to the finish, because to put this kind of into perspective, Bob, 5 kilometers on the slopes of a climb like this, 3 miles, is going to take him about 15 to 17 minutes.
Very few riders would have the audacity to make a move like this, apart from Frank Schleck, that are in this bike race. This is the terrain of the pure climbers. Frank Schleck, not a great time trialist. He was 36 seconds slower than Peter Sagan yesterday, finishing 44th. He's wiped out that deficit and quite a bit more with this bold attack a long ways out from the finish line, about 3 miles to go in the bike race.
Yep, well, he's extended his lead too to 24 seconds. It is a bold move. It is an audacious movement. Maybe, Bob, to win the Tour de France this year for the Schleck brothers, they've got to make these kind of audacious moves, and maybe he's trying himself out with a thought going forward to the month of July.
Second wheel, Steven Kruijswijk. On his wheel, Robert Hasink, the leader of the Rabobank squad. But look at his face. He is in absolute agony.
Well, I tell you what, Bob, it's an indication of the pressure of the race behind Frank Schleck. And Frank Schleck is still edging out a few more seconds, 26 seconds now. That's Albacini over on the right-hand side wearing number 61. And the rider who led the time trial yesterday for a long time, number 6 on the other side, was Moreno Moser. Frank Schleck looks like he's having a nice ride out in the mountains here this afternoon. He doesn't look like a man under pressure.
He looks a little bit under pressure to me. Starting to grimace a little bit, starting to go cross-eyed. That's when you get deep into the effort and you start asphyxiating yourself. Nothing like the big mountain climbs and the big stage races can do that to a bike racer.
Well, I thought Michael Albacini might have been a man looking at a yellow jersey towards the end of today, but that's not going to be the case, is it? Because he's being tailed off this group. Just in front of him, youngster Moreno Moser and Lawrence Tendam. Well, that's not very pretty, is it?
That's not beautiful, but it is effective. Lawrence Tendam back to the front, drooling because of the effort required to stay in the front of this very select group. Now, very small group left. Stefan Kreuzwig, he's second wheel. Robert Hasink is right there, third wheel. Robert Hasink in agony is also. The Rabobank men bring their A-team, their Tour de France squad, here to the Tour de Suisse, and they want to chase this man down. A lot on the line for Rabobank.
4 kilometers, 32 seconds the advantage, 2.5 miles to go. Now, this is a very good climber from France here. This is John Gadret from AG2R La Mondiale. He started the day in 33rd position overall. He's not too worried about that at the moment. What he's concerned about, trying to get himself a mountaintop victory.
John Gadret, another pure climber. He's a Frenchman chasing the Luxembourger. Frank Schleck's lead continues to increase. It's at 33 seconds now. But let's see if this acceleration by Gadret closes that gap down a little bit to Frank Schleck.
Well, Gadret won a stage of the Giro d'Italia last year and finished in 4th place in the overall standings. He's really opened up the gap. I tell you what, this really is putting a lot of pressure on the peloton. Day 1 on the open road. Yesterday was an individual time trial. This has got to be hurting.
And now I've just seen the acceleration starting to come from the peloton. It looked like Yuskati was on the attack, but that gap increasing still. We'll see if the elastic has broken. Frank Schleck streaking to the finish line. 4 kilometers to go, inside of 3 miles to the line.
Well, if you think this is a nutty move, it isn't actually, Bob, because if Frank Schleck does ever get caught on the run in towards the finish, Fuglsang, from his own team, has actually just been sitting there watching the operations. It's the old 1-2 they're setting up.
It'll have a double effect, soften up the field, give the chance to perhaps his teammate, also Frank Schleck. If they don't chase, he'll get the stage win.
Well, it's Movistar now, time to line this up. I wonder if Alejandro Valverde is in this group. There are not many riders left in this group, but the man who's made the first move, the boldest move, is Frank Schleck. After the break, we'll take it to the top. Coming down to decision time now at Verbier's finish. 4 kilometers to go, 31 seconds the advantage. That's half a minute advantage for Frank Schleck. His teammate is sitting there, and Lawrence Tendam has just gone straight out of the back after the hard turn he did at the front for Robert Gesink.
Hit the front, did his effort. Now he's blown out the back. He'll noodle the finish line and fight again tomorrow.
Well, I tell you what, this race is absolutely imploding as we look now. It's going all over the slopes of this mountain. I tell you what, Frank Schleck is the man who has laid down the foundations for an attempt to try and get himself the victory here. And again, another move coming out of the front end of the peloton. There's another rider coming across here from Movistar.
Astana rider leading. That could very well be a winner of this race before. His name is Roman Kreuziger. Rui Costa is the Movistar rider, stage winner of last year's Tour de France. He's putting in a big dig here, and that is, you can see the effort caused by the riders trying to follow that acceleration by Rui Costa. The man in orange, that's Mikel Nieve, very handy climber. Got a stage win in the Giro and the Volta a España.
Well, I tell you what, Costa, obviously, Bob, trying to set this up for Alejandro Valverde, a man who knows how to ride this race exceptionally well. He's been a victor in the past. As we now join Frank Schleck here. 3 kilometers to go for Frank Schleck. 2 miles. That's still going to take him about 6 or 7 minutes. Oh, no, this is not what. This is Robert Gesink. He shouldn't be going backwards.
Robert Hasink struggling now to maintain the tempo in the group. His teammate is still there, Stefan Kreuzwig, but big trouble for Robert Hasink, maybe paying for the efforts to win the Amgen Tour of California.
Well, that is a big surprise. That's Matthias Frank as well, the Swiss rider on the BMC Racing squad. Robert Hessing, he was so dominant in the Amgen Tour of California, but that can be the way sometimes, Bob. Don't forget he's coming back from a nasty accident. He broke his leg towards the end of last year, and now what he's trying to do is get himself back into Tour de France form. So it's Astana now trying to set up the pacemaking at the front. That must be for Kreuziger. He must be in that breakaway group somewhere. He's a man who's won the Tour of Switzerland in the past. Also moving to the front, Garmin Barracuda. Man here, Frank Schleck, is still holding on to just inside of a 30-second advantage.
28 seconds advantage for Frank Schleck. That should be enough. With 3 kilometers to go, 1.8 miles before the finish of the bike race. If Frank Schleck is on good form, and he has shown that by accelerating away from the peloton, he's come onto form right at the perfect moment. This should be enough for him to stay away to the finish.
Well, look at Hessing there, just off the back end of this group. He's trying to pull himself back into the group there to stay there. There's a long race. Let's not forget, we're talking about this race being a 9-day race. This is only day 2, and Robert Hessing, who came here with hopes of being the top man for Rabobank for the Tour de France, put under difficulty immediately in the mountains.
Well, he hasn't given up, but he is having a tough time staying in this group, yo-yoing off the back. They hesitated for a moment with 3 kilometers to go here, and he's had a chance to get back into this front group. He needs to stay there throughout this stage. Perhaps he'll feel better when we get to the last weekend of the race and 2 more mountaintop finishes.
Well, it's a hard week of racing to hone your skills for the Tour de France, which is coming up on the 30th of June onwards. Robert Hessing, you know, sometimes, Bob, when you're a climber, you go through a little bit of a bad patch, especially if somebody else is dictating the pace. Then all of a sudden you can recover and bounce yourself back in. Will he do it?
Well, the damage being done to Robert Hessing by Frank Schleck, and that is great riding by the Luxembourger on Radio Shack.
Well, this is like Tommy Danielson coming out of the gap here for Garmin Barracuda. Looks over his shoulder to see if he's doing any damage. A bit further back, Damiano Cunego. He's the rider with the fluorescent bicycle sitting in there. If this group was to catch up with Frank Schleck and they all came down to the finish line together, watch out for the finishing punch of Damiano Cunego.
Great riding by Tommy Danielson, 1.2 miles before the finish line, opening up a little bit of daylight there, trying to get across the gap to Frank Schleck. That's a great acceleration by one of the best climbers in the business, Tom Danielson, living now in Boulder, Colorado.
Well, what a nasty looking machine as well. A matte black machine there for Tommy Danielson. Looks rather cool there. He's the leader of this squad, and he's looking to going back to the Tour de France this year. The reactions coming thick and fast behind. The first man who tried to respond there was, in fact, Thomas Lofquist. Could this acceleration by Danielson damn this Rabobank rider, Robert Hessing, to the back end of the race?
Robert Hessing blown out now. He cannot make the tempo. The tether has been cut to Robert Hessing. He's going to have to limit his damage, limit his losses throughout the rest of the stage.
Well, just sitting at the back there, that's Gustav, the rider, 172. There's Levi Leipheimer, number 1, riding himself sensibly into this bike race. A little bit further forward in front of him, Rui Costa is in the group as well. Nice move by Tommy Danielson, I have to say. For a long time, he hailed from Durango, Colorado, but like everybody else now moved to Boulder, Colorado to train in the high mountains, although he spends a majority of the European season race living in Spain.
And cutting into that lead of Frank Schleck, the gap now plummeting precipitously for Frank Schleck. When Tommy D took off, it was a 30-second advantage to Frank Schleck. He's cut 7 seconds into that. 2 kilometers to go before the finish line. This is going to go right down to the wire. Frank Schleck needs to dig deeper, keep going as hard as he can. There's the king of the mountain points, but it's most certainly not flat to the finish line. It still climbs up all the way to the line. We're gaining altitude until the very last moment of the race.
Well, Danielson, it's always very easy, Bob, to make their first initial acceleration, but then you have to continue with that effort, and that's where I think Tommy Danielson is going to here. You can see the guys behind are now starting to respond to try and get across to the wheel of the American.
Tom Danielson, also another American, Levi Leipheimer. We just saw him in that front group. Great to see Levi hanging tough after that broken leg in training. He soldiered through the Tour of California. Now, obviously, that's done him well, and he has good form here in the Tour of Switzerland.
71, Damiano Cunego. Well, there's my prediction going out to the back of this group, and he cannot hold the pace. The pace is infernal in that group. This is Gadre again. Got himself across to Tom Danielson. There's a rider coming across here from Movistar. That's Costa. He will be sitting in this group, defending the position, of course, of Alejandro Valverde, who's just in about 2nd or 3rd position in the group behind.
Oh, that's going to hurt. Rui Costa going right over the top of the 2 men, Gadre and Danielson. Gadre struggling to get onto the wheel of Rui Costa. Twists and turns, steep switchback corners before the finish line. Pretty soon we'll get into the 1 kilometer to go mark, 1,000 yards. There it is. There's the 1K banner. Rui Costa now. How far is it to Frank Schleck?
Look at his face. He's trying to set this one up here for Alejandro Valverde. He won a stage of the Tour de France last year, right up to Superbest, to the detriment of TJ Van Garderen, the American, on BMC Racing. But they are ripping this race apart. In fact, you know, Costa is going so hard, Bob, he's ridden away from that group.
He has dropped that group. It looks like Gadre is trying to get on the wheel of Rui Costa. They're chasing this man, our lone leader, Frank Schleck. But look at the face of Frank Schleck. He's just got inside of 1,000 yards before the finish line, looking down at the ground. Frank, look up. You need to look at the finish line. Don't give up yet.
Well, he's got to get that concentration, but you know, the pain that this rider is going through at the moment is all around his body as he looks around each corner. Exactly where is the finishing line? I can't remember back to 2009. Well, it's still a long way to go. He's still got a gap there. On the left-hand side, in fact, that's still Rui Costa. He's coming around that corner, and he is riding like a man possessed here this afternoon. He's already knocked another 6 seconds off the advantage of Frank Schleck.
Nieve in orange chasing with John Gadre, the man in the pink shoes. Rui Costa has dropped his team captain, Alejandro Valverde. There's no way Valverde could catch him before the finish line, so he's racing for himself. The question is, can he catch Frank Schleck?
Well, that's a big, important question now. Tommy Danielson is into second position. The man doing the pacemaking at the front of this group, none other than the defending champion, Levi Leipheimer. But the Spitzer, the leader of the race, is Frank Schleck, and he is trying to find some last little bit of energy to keep him going. Not sure what happened there. Anyway, we're looking back there. There we've got the two chasers, and we must still be with Rui Costa somewhere. The gap between Costa now, Bob, and Frank Schleck is down to 12 seconds.
And there's Rui Costa now. He's really struggling himself. He's got less than 500 yards.
That's not 10 seconds.
Line.
That is not 10 seconds at all, Bob. We're inside of the 400 or 500 meters to go, and Rui Costa is looking at the back wheel of Frank Schleck. Schleck looks to me like he's slowing down. He's losing all his impetus here now. Costa is coming up to the wheel of Frank Schleck. What's he going to do? If I was him, I'd go straight by him if I had the legs.
Frank Schleck dead in the water. Rui Costa onto the wheel now. It's going to be a sprint between these two men before the finish. Just a couple of 100 yards to go.
Well, Frank Schleck did not expect to get caught by anyone here this afternoon, and Costa at 150 to go opens up the sprint, and now you can see Frank Schleck tries to get onto the wheel of the man from Portugal there as he opens it up. He's got the gap on Frank Schleck here this afternoon. They're chasing behind him, but they're not going to get anywhere near him at all, as Rui Costa is going to get himself the stage victory. It looked initially as if he was trying to set it up for Alejandro Valverde, but no, thank you very much. I'll take that one myself. He comes up to the line like he did in the Tour de France in last year's race. He got himself a stage victory at the top of a mountain. Frank Schleck hangs on for second place at the end of the day.
Rui Costa running super best in the Tour de France last summer. Had a solid opening time trial here in the Tour de Suisse yesterday. Let's see if that's enough. It was enough for the stage win. Let's see if it's enough for the overall win.
Tom Danielson and Levi Leipheimer just crossing the line there ahead of Thomas Lofquist. Well, you have to say, Bob, that was a brave and audacious move by Frank Schleck, and he missed out for 150 meters on getting himself that stage victory.
I wonder if Frank Schleck shouldn't have waited a little bit longer before he struck out. He might have had enough to win the stage, but he did hold on for second place. That was a great stage by Frank Schleck.
And Arno Kuniger coming in there, and he crosses the line, lost himself about 45 seconds now. The man who we expected would be the attacker here this afternoon is Robert Hessing, and that face tells a story, doesn't it? The pain that his body has gone through this afternoon, but he won't give up. He'll try and ride better and better, but look at the time gap. He's going to lose in excess of 1 minute today.
Wow, 1 minute 3 seconds plus a time bonus for Rui Costa, and it was Robert Hessing that finished about 6 seconds faster than Rui Costa in the opening time trial. Rui Costa did a opening time trial 36 seconds slower than the stage winner Peter Sagan might have done, just enough to get the leader's jersey.
Moreno Moser coming across the line there, the leader of the foot rider who finished in third place yesterday, led the time trial for a long time in the streets around Lugano.
Stage win going to Rui Costa, the movie star rider from Portugal, following up on the stage win of the Tour de France and getting the better of Frank Schleck. This is an emphatic stage win for the movie star from Portugal.
Well, they could have done it any which way themselves, because they also had in reserve Alejandro Valverde. There he is, congratulating his teammate from Portugal on a very remarkable win. He had the audacity to chase down Frank Schleck. He caught him at 150 meters to go, and he just popped by him inside sight of the finishing straight. But that's going to really reshape the look of the overall standings at the end of the day. Well done. First of all, let's have a look at the stage results. Rui Costa getting that win, 4 seconds ahead of Frank Schleck. Mikel Nieve of Euskaltel-Euskadi in third place, losing 12 seconds. Thibaut Pinot of Française des Jeux in fifth place. A little bit further down, I didn't see him come in, but Nicolas Roche was in sixth there. Chris Anker Sorensen seventh, rounding out the top 10. Roman Kreuziger losing 22 seconds. We'll take a short break with a look here at Rui Costa. When we come back, we'll have the podiums. Well, we expected a lot of changes on this day with a mountain-top finish in the ski resort of Verbier, but I don't think we expected it to be with a move by Frank Schleck at 5 kilometers to go. The yellow jersey, Peter Sagan, will have to say goodbye to it because he's lost himself in excess of 13 minutes on the stage. He'll plummet a long way down in the overall standings. He'll be a long way behind this man, the winner of the stage, Rui Costa from Portugal.
Brilliant attack with 2 kilometers to go by Rui Costa. He was marked a couple of times by the men in the front group, but he was in pursuit of Frank Schleck. He took 30 seconds out of him in just over a mile's time. Great closing stage for Rui Costa, and he just caught Frank Schleck a couple of 100 meters to go and was able to win the stage.
Swiss cowbell to take home, and maybe one of those St. Bernards, but this man, that move that he made down towards the end has earned him the Road ID Ride of the Day.
Timing is everything in the sport of professional cycling. You don't win a stage without having impeccable sense of cadence, tempo, and timing. Catching Frank Schleck with a couple 100 meters to go, putting 4 seconds into him within sight of the finish line.
Yep, that's why he's our Road ID Ride of the Day. The next presentation we will make will be the yellow jersey prediction, and it goes to Rui Costa with his victory here this afternoon. The 10-second time bonus came in very handy indeed. I have to say that's going to be an interesting race as we move further into the heart of Switzerland in the next few days.
Well, not one of our pre-race favorites, but he put in an incredible ride here. Should be able to keep this jersey for a while. We go out onto the open roads, but we don't have another decisive stage for a few days. Great ride by Rui Costa from Portugal and the Movistar squad. Looking forward to being competitive at the Tour de France later on this summer.
Yes, he's just 25 years of age, so we will expect a lot more to come out of him and some support to come from Alejandro Valverde. So the standings look like this at the end of the day. Rui Costa leads Frank Schleck, who moves up into second place by 8 seconds. Kreuziger moving up into third place at 15 seconds. Nicolas Roche inside the top 5 there, a little bit further back. Alejandro Valverde 7th at 23 seconds. Mikel Nieve from Euskaltel-Euskadi there, and Tommy Danielson inside of the top 10.
Some of our notable riders on the stage. Levi Leipheimer will start tomorrow, 13th in the overall standings. Robert Hasink, bad news, losing time. He's now 1 minute and 9 seconds behind Rui Costa.
Yes, well, because of his attack there and getting himself the King of the Mountains points, Frank Schleck now leads the King of the Mountains classification. And in Switzerland, by the way, it's a green jersey.
Well, the mountain's covered in grass here in Switzerland. The green grass of home for Frank Schleck is Luxembourg, but he is the King of the Mountains, at least for today, at the end of today's stage in the Tour of Switzerland.
And remember, the story of the Tour of Switzerland continues tomorrow with the Epic Cycle Series presented by Michelob Ultra on stage 3 of the Tour de Suisse. Tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on the NBC Sports Network. And there'll be a lot more fun and more racing to come for the rest of this week at the Tour of Switzerland. And if you want to find out our schedule, log on to NBCsports.com. On behalf of Bob Roll, I'm Paul Schoen saying goodbye.